Everybody, yeah, yeah, rock your body, yeah, yeah. Mike and Steve are back. It's the improvement season. That was my take. I think I don't.
I don't think I can record with you now, Mike. I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
How
I
long have you
think
been
I
preparing that one?
a couple of days. I almost didn't do it. I almost didn't do it. But I felt I had to because otherwise I'd never do it. And I don't think I think the improvement season's reached a new high now. I think this is going to be at least 1,000 new listeners,
Dear,
guaranteed.
yeah. After Mike sings Backstreet Boys, I don't think that's
I'm
going to
being
draw
true
many
to
people
my
in.
tattoo.
The tattoo that's on the butt cheek that we can't
Yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. That no one except improvement season listeners know about.
Dear. Oh, I don't even
There
know
you
where
go.
to go from here, Mike. You have to follow that. I don't
How's
know how to
life?
follow that up.
That's it. Let's stop. Well, a
Peaked.
good place just to have a quick catch up would be you obviously went to Cambridge for your birthday weekend
Yeah.
and you went to La Coach and it looked awesome. It'd be great to get a bit of feedback on that.
As we said off air, so the listeners are aware, we have loads of questions to get through. So we're going to try and buzz through our updates because I don't know if there's much for you, but we can ramble. Anyway, I'm doing it already. So, yes, Charlotte was like, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" I was like, "Hey," and she loves getting away for a weekend. So I was just like, so long as I can train, like I'm good. And so we're looking for gyms. And she was like, if there was a gym in the UK you could train at that you'd love to, like, where would it be? Immediately, obviously, what comes to mind is Ultraflex. But unfortunately, that's in Rotherham, which is not the nicest of locations for a weekend away, I don't think. I don't think many people move there necessarily for the serenity of the environment and the things to do there. Anyway, nothing against Rotherham. I've actually not been, so I can't say too much. It's also a bit far, considering we're going to drive there or what have you. So I knew of La Coach. I knew it when it's like a good few years old now. And I've seen kind of video footage of people that train there, such as Adam Powell, I know trains there, who is pro with the PMBA, I think it is. And he's competing this year. In fact, I met him at the gym. Again, told you I could ramble. So the coach was this kind of selection, and it's a bit outside of Cambridge too. And Charlotte found the best accommodation. It was like some really modern apartments, and it actually really reminded me of Vauxhall. Did you go to my flat in Vauxhall, Mike, ever?
Never went inside. I met you outside once.
Okay, so the location, you kind of get that vibe, very modern, very open, kind of a bit bougie in some way. Like it's quite nice. Vauxhall was a bit more like that. This was a bit more me and Charlotte, like a bit more. I don't know how to say it, normal, a bit more grounded. I felt like not like wearing Louis Vuitton trainers and driving a Lambo. It was a bit lower down than that, I guess. So anyway, the location was amazing. There was like a really good coffee shop there. We got some great sourdough there. There was actually a pizza place, a Neapolitan pizza place we went to there. It was dog friendly, of course. And it was, Charlotte actually hired a car so that she could drive me to the gym. But you know what Charlotte's like. She's not an early bird. So I just got Ubers to the gym each morning. But it was only like a 10-minute drive away. So got myself a day pass there and trained on Sunday and in hindsight, I wish I'd also been able to train there on Saturday, but I just trained at Yorkies because it would have been cool to do push. But yeah, I did a lower body day there on Sunday, which is normally my rest day, but I felt I just wanted to train and I wanted to try out the gym and all of that. And it was fine. And then Monday I did a pool session there. And for people that want to see like some bits and pieces of that, I'll be posting it on I've just posted the lower body session that I did there on loads of Cybex, basically. Cybex and Nautilus is kind of the theme of the training that I had there. And it was just an incredible facility for multiple reasons. One, I would say just the environment that's there, like the people that are training there. Charlotte was like, the people that train here, I just look at them and they just remind me of you. They're just like very clearly into the gym, take it quite seriously, like in pretty good shape. And I spoke to actually one guy for a while there. I think it's his name's Jan. I'm terrible with names, so I apologize, Jan. I think he listens to the main podcast. He kind of introduced himself to me. He actually spot me on a set of hack that I would have failed if he didn't help me. I didn't expect to kind of push myself to that point. I thought I had more reps in the tank, but you know what it's like when you're training on new kit. And I spoke to the owner there, who's a really nice guy, clearly really knows his kit, but not just knows it, he also maintains it. So it's kind of like the hack squat they have there is an old school Cybex, which is very similar to the one at Yorkie's. It don't feel the same because I think it's the bearings in he's updated them. So these pieces of kit like 30 years old. So the bearings obviously are completely beat to shit. And so his was just so smooth. I did the Cybex leg press. It was just so smooth. And it's really interesting because it kind of, I don't know how much of a difference it really makes in terms of stimulating muscle growth because you just take that muscle close to failure. But I think the SFRs just felt better on these smoother kits. Like failing didn't feel like torture. There wasn't such a severe sticking point. I felt more able to grind through repetitions. Like I think some people look at my leg press and they're like, hey, it looks like you got more in the tank there. But the leg press, it's like the way it moves along the whatever it is, it doesn't glide the same way as this like really smooth leg press does. And you've probably been on leg press as well, Mike, where you're just like, I can grind. Whereas others, it's like, wow, I just hit a sticking point. So it was quite interesting kind of doing that. But yeah, tons of fun. It was like I said, it was the perfect weekend for me for my birthday. It was like chilled, walking the dog, lovely coffee, great pizza, spending lots of time. My love language is spending time. I don't know if that's what it's called, but like quality time is my love language. I just love hanging out with people. That's the way I kind of show it, and that's the way I receive it. And then training, obviously, in just an epic gym. And the back day was, I don't know what was better, back or legs. The back day was a bit more interesting because it was lots of new pieces, whereas the lower body day actually mimicked quite a lot of what is at Yorkie's, like the Nautilus hip thrust they have. It's like the same model that I have in Yorkie's. So it was quite cool doing that.
Did the hip thrust machine feel better than Yorkie's?
I don't think it's much different, actually. I think that's one of the pieces that felt pretty similar. The only difference is they, by the machine, had these really thick pads, and that was just perfect. So when I do perform the one in Yorkie's, I do my hoodie and I fold it up, and that kind of acts as padding. But whatever, they had like some yoga mats or whatever folded up for it, and they just worked perfectly. So yeah, basically the same. That was one lift where it didn't really seem to make much difference. But yeah, the Cybex hack was noticeable, and the Cybex leg press was just so smooth and just really fit me like a glove. So that was nice.
That's so cool. I mean, just from some of your stories, I knew it'd be just like completely your vibe, and I was just really like happy. So it's so good. And it is really interesting about the equipment, and not just people knowing about the equipment, but what you said about just things being smoother, not being a grind or reaching a sticking point. Yeah, it is fascinating. Even if it's just the mental fatigue of if it doesn't feel as much of a grind and it's not as hellish, you would have thought, at least from a mental standpoint, that would help with, fatigue management and so on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's interesting, and I was like, Charlotte, can we move to Cambridge?
I was gonna say,
And
you're gonna have
she
to
would
move to
actually
Cambridge.
Cambridge is lovely for though we have a lot of US listeners, and if you haven't been to the UK and like you want to visit a really lovely city, I should say, Cambridge is really nice. So obviously you're in Oxford, so you're like right next door,
Mm.
which is also lovely. But yeah, what was I going to say? The other thing with that gym, very Instagrammable. So like the lighting was really nice. Like every video I took, I was like, wow, it just looks clean and crisp on camera, which for me, as a like our marketing is taking video, like we're content producers very much. So it's quite a big deal actually to be able to have that available. So that was pretty cool. And there's a lot of serious trainees there. Like I said, like on the wall, I think they had just like pictures of people who had competed. So they had like 20 different kind of photos from like the PCA, UKLFBA, WNBF, just like photos of the people who train in the gym who have competed. And they even had some, I think it's called Kaiser equipment, where it's like runoff. It's not like they had plates or weight like that. It's like runoff, like air
Pressure.
compression. Yeah, exactly. I didn't try any of it because just didn't have the time, and it would have been. I have no idea how to. Actually, no, I did try one, and you can kind of actually manipulate it during the set. I just messed around very quickly, but I didn't actually use it as like a working set. But it was cool. But yeah, they just had everything, even the machine crunch, the Nautilus machine crunch that I used. I was just like, man, this is so good. I wish I had this. So I need to find Charlotte a job in Cambridge. If anyone
Yeah.
needs a online merchandiser, manager, or director, even I should say, then yeah, reach out to me. Or if you just have any jobs going, that would be fantastic.
But it's just great to know that these gyms are in the UK. And I was thinking as well that it's that that type of gym, which is that rare breed between kind of, because I find you've either got the spit and sawdust gyms, which are kind of like hardcore, tribute to bodybuilding type things, and then you've got like the pristine gyms, and you just don't have anywhere in the middle. But when you do have those gyms, which are like your Dragon's Lair, La Coach, those type gyms which blend the two, they're the rare breed. But they're getting more and more, and it's nice to know that we've got some in the UK.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, just it's kind of like I don't know. I can't think of a good analogy here, but y- your ignorance is bliss in some sense. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of I almost wish I didn't know how good it was to have trained there, because now I'm like, oh, not that Yorkies is bad, of course, it's and definitely a step up from previous gyms I've trained at. I do see that has tons of potential and but room for improvement too, and I'm sure they see that as well. But I imagine it's hell of a lot of work and everything to kind of maintain kit to stay on top of that. In fact, it was funny, just as well, it's the same a line that along the same lines. They have a power mount row at La Coach that they purchased from Yorkies. This power mount row was just dead weight basically in Yorkies. No one used it, and I tried it and it was not great. I think it was broken, and La Coach bought it and they kind of refurbished it, and I
Hmm.
used it and it was actually great. And I was like, damn it. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway,
But
I
like you said,
digress.
again, it just goes to, if you've got someone who knows about equipment and understands bodybuilding, or understands good training, it's a game changer. I think that's the argument for, equipment suppliers these days. It's like, maybe they're engineers, but they don't, maybe they don't train, or they just don't understand, and it just leads to a poor customer slash trainee satisfaction and experience.
Yeah, I think that's where Prime and I think Atlantis maybe have done good things where I've seen they've brought in like Kasim, like Coach Kasim Hansen, to help in the engineering process of the kits. Yeah, it was a great weekend. How about you, Mike? How's your weekend? I can see you've now got a lampshade.
Yeah, ta-da! So it was good. So I've been slowly. I actually this week I booked the week off the clinic, which was quite nice. I just thought it's the bank holiday. The clinic shut during a bank holiday anyway, so I just thought, well, it's only an extra couple of days for me, and it's just a good kind of period of time where I can just be around, get be there for furniture arriving and stuff like that, and then go from there. And also, it's just acted as a good reset for me, because I think the clinic was in a great way. You can always be really grateful and thankful for, being full on at work, but at the same time, it does challenge my or one's systems and processes. And I was just finding I was probably just getting a little bit caught up in the rat race a little bit, and just kind of like, I can see that sleep's tapering off a little bit. I can see that I'm just kind of tapering off on Instagram and stuff. And so this was just a nice little, right, press pause, you know, reset yourself, re-clarify what's important, what kind of good habits and strategies do you need to put in place to make sure that you still get the necessary stuff done. So it's been really nice from that perspective. So yeah, and I think on that note, from a training perspective, which we talked about, is I I don't know why I got this in my head, but I was like, I need to get it done. I need to get it done. And I think I was just then getting caught in the trap of, you know, letting quality subside a little bit. And I was like, I just need to get this done. It's like, no, 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 no. That's not the case. And so again, this was again really useful for me this period of time, because I was able just to, I've almost been just doing a bit less. I have been doing less, but the quality has been higher, and I've been feeling the benefits of that. So yeah, it's been a good week all around.
Yeah, it's one of those where you get into a situation of having such quantity to do that you subconsciously kind of hold yourself back and do things to a lower standard to just get it done. And you know, when you have that mindset of just trying to get it done, it's not a good move. I know I like teeter with the edge of that because sometimes on my, especially on leg days, like I finish off, I don't know what it could be like my leg press. I'm like, oh gosh, I've got like the rest of this done. But I'm like, throughout the session, I kind of keep an eye on, am I just getting through or am I like present and here and doing it to high standard? And I know I'm teetering on that edge, which is fine. Like for you and me, that's where we kind of want to be, flirting with those, what's it called? The PUOS of, what's it called? I forget even what that stands for. I know PUOS from Jake. Do you remember what it actually
It's
stands
the
for? Point
point
of
of I can't
undetectable. It's basically the point of which there's a 50-50 chance if you're getting detectable growth or not from it. So it's like the risk to reward really for the majority of people is just not there. So we're kind of playing with that. I joke that you're kind of there anyway as a bodybuilder who's been training 10 years. Like you're kind of like everything you do is at this point of like you're uncertain if you're getting any benefit from it, but we keep going. A firm believer that there is no kind of limit, there is no ceiling. It is just a case of you keep going, you keep seeing results. If you
definitely.
don't, then you won't.
And it's a little bit, again, we're all our N=1 experiment, and sometimes we might sometimes push things a little bit too far sometimes, and that again, that's a useful learning point to say like, hey, okay, I know that that's my limit. I remember you saying once that, hey, you could add an extra set on leg press, but you know that that would totally lead to a deload coming in earlier, and that's only come through previous experience of trying it and making a mistake and then learning from it.
Yeah. Any other updates from you? Otherwise, I'll
Nope.
go on to news and noteworthy because
Yes.
we have this segment now. I don't know if
Let's
do you
do
have
it.
anything though, Mike? Let's see.
No, I genuinely don't.
You've had this week off, Mike.
What? Oh, no, but I thought you meant in terms of
Come on.
updates.
Oh, news and noteworthy updates.
News and, well, so I do.
Let's see
Okay,
if it's
my
the same as
news and
mine.
noteworthy updates are that I saw that AJ Morris won the Heart of England at the UK DFBA.
It was the same as mine. So yeah,
Oh,
the NBW was it like it's like a first timers come like open competition, Heart of England, because they only got 2 shows this year, right?
oh, so yeah, I forgot about
It's
that.
not like
But
qualifiers.
I totally forgot about that, to be honest. But I saw that they put the HOE, so I just thought that that was the Heart of England.
But
Yeah,
it is was at the Ben Hall, the Ben Hall.
yes,
Is that what it is?
Ben Hall
Yeah,
rugby.
which we were at actually. You did that show, right?
I
No. Tom
yes, I
did that
did.
show.
I
Sorry,
did.
but
I
you
did that
also
show
did
as
it.
well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a show I've done as well. Actually, that's a show. Did I win that one? I don't know. I can't even remember now. Yeah, but that's a show like it because it's quite fairly local essentially. But
Mm.
yes, you're right. AJ did win the overall there, and it looked like a great show actually. I know. Obviously, I'm not familiar with every competitor, but I know Warren, who might listen to this, might not. I think Warren Mann is, I think that's his last name. I apologize if it's wrong, but he was also competing. I competed against him at the WMBF in 2021. Was that 2022? I forget the dates. Anyway, he was very competitive there too. So it was cool to see that he was competing. I haven't seen shots of him, but from the feedback I've heard, he needs to get a bit tighter, which, hey, it's early in the season, right? I think this was like the show that kicked off the UK natural bodybuilding kind of season, because then we'll have the WMBF first timers kicking off in like a little over a week now. So that's exciting as well. And yeah, I know that overall was very, very tight because I spoke to Adam Powell. Competitor was the one who was in the overall 2 with AJ. And there was, I think, 3 judges tied on that. So it was like 3 for AJ, 3 for Adam's competitor. I've forgotten his name. I feel like it was Mike, but I don't know if it actually was Mike. And then the head judge gave it to AJ, gave the nod to AJ. So, I mean, clearly could have gone either way in that case. Yeah, it would have been exciting to kind of see that, especially with AJ. He's like a huge force for natural bodybuilding within the UK. He hasn't competed for a number of years. So yeah, actually he hadn't competed for longer than I had, because we last competed together as well. And so yeah, to see him come to stage, and he keeps himself under wraps, which we've spoken about before. So it's quite exciting to see his physique, and yeah, he looked great.
It's really nice sometimes, just as a fan of bodybuilding and, you know, a fan of these people, just to see them like on stage and to see what they've been up to, and also like enjoying themselves as well. Yeah, it's really super cool. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I've not got more on that. That's really all I
Neither
have.
have I.
We can get into questions then, because we have a load of questions. And just as a side note for questions, first, as a reminder, to ask questions, you have to join my, I forgot what it's even called, broadcast group, the Hypertrophic Time Chamber, over on Instagram. It's always linked in the description. We have now over 700 members in there, which is awesome. And I don't
So
post
cool.
in there much. It's mostly just these question boxes, to be honest. I sometimes share little bits and pieces otherwise. But yeah, we've had a lot of good questions to get through today, so we'll get through those. I'll ask
Mm.
you the first one, Mike. So, I thought I would. I thought I was on the right question box, but as I was saying to Mike off air, oh, I thought we were halfway through one box.
Yeah, I think I've got it in front of me. Do you want me to ask
Who's
it?
the person asking?
Lifting wise 5.
Lifting wise 5.
Lifting Lewis 5, sorry.
Oh, gosh. It's annoying. I had it, and now I'm like, where's it gone? Because the one I have. Okay, I'll just let you ask, Mike. You might have to ask
Okay.
all of them, because I can't find this box.
It's quite a way up. It's like just before the Will Tennyson one, just after Will Tennyson
Okay.
post.
You go ahead and ask, and I'll
Okie dokie.
hopefully
So,
find it.
Lifting Lewis 5 asks, is there a way to increase your metabolism and change from spendthrift to non-spendthrift?
So, for some reason, I found the one you've mentioned, the question box, but it's just not showing all the questions. It's only showing
Interesting.
ones that I've liked. Now it is. Instagram being buggy. Sorry, listeners. Sorry, Mike. It's a simple answer though for this one. No, like your spendthrift to thrifty is a inherent genetic component of your metabolism. It's not something you can do anything about. You can be aware if you're more thrifty or spendthrift, and that might mean that you are more or less like quote unquote lazy. You might have to increase your step count or go out of your way to do that versus not, as an example. Or you might need to incorporate more cardio or less, or be aware that your metabolism is more adaptive. So you probably have to chase up food a bit more versus less, and so on and so forth. But that is still going to be a fundamental part of what you are. So it's similar to, you can't change whether or not you have a small waist or like wide clavicles, but you can build muscles on top of that or lose body fat to help with that taper.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing else to add there, Your Honor.
Cool. Progress Forwards asks, what's one thing you'll disagree with most of the bodybuilding community on? Oh, interesting question.
Yeah. What do I disagree with the bodybuilding community on? That the hip adductor machine is good.
You use that one again.
I I don't
Even after
I
Dan
don't know.
Cole's post, Dan might be watching. Did you see his post? I think he tagged me. He probably tagged you.
He didn't tag me, I don't think, because I haven't seen it. Sorry, Dan.
So Dan, you're gonna have to reach out to Mike now.
Yeah,
Okay, so
tag me, Dan. Come on.
the thing I'm gonna disagree most on with the bodybuilding community, man, it's tough because it's really like all there is what you see. So it's like my perception of the bodybuilding community is what I see of it, whereas other people might see different aspects of it. I have been listening to a lot of Jordan Sayat's podcast because I just have been enjoying it with Mike Vacanti. I've just been binge listening. And whenever those guys talk about the bodybuilding community, I'm always like, that's not what we are. So I think that their perspective on it might be what the general perspective of the bodybuilding community is, and how a lot of the bodybuilding community might be. And that's like ultra rigid with food selection, to the point of like eating disordered style and behaviors. Whereas I definitely disagree with that. I think you are more or less flexible in accordance to where you are and with your goals. So as we get closer to stage, yes, it's probably borderline like eating disorder territory and very restrictive, but that's in accordance with the goal and it's short term. Post show, you're recovering that. And in your off season, you're in a much better, more flexible state where you can eat meals out and enjoy that. And they don't have to be quote unquote cheat meals. So I guess that might be my disagreement is like, you don't have to have cheat meals. It's still ingrained within, you think, even just like the bodybuilding space in general. I think it's getting better, but I still think people do cheat meals. And I'm just like, I don't understand that black and white mentality at all. I think it's not the right way to go. So yeah, maybe that's the one I have. Did you have any
Yeah.
others, or are you sticking with your hip abduction? I think that's fine, by the way.
I've got another one as well, and I don't know if this is something that is changing as well, but you used to hear a lot of how, bodybuilding is a solo endeavor. Well, I would also disagree with that, and I think that bodybuilding is actually very much a team sport. I mean, if you weren't a lot of people, particularly competitive bodybuilders, they tend to have a coach these days, but even if you take out that component, you think, well, you've still got your family who are, supporting you in some regards. You've got someone who is still supporting you. No one is a absolute island in isolation. And if they are, even if you go outside of that box and you think, well, you've probably got someone helping you with your tan, or you've got someone, something. I just think that bodybuilding isn't, it's, it's individual in some respects. You can only, the hardship and your experience of dieting, etc. Sure, only you can experience that and go through that, but equally the support network to allow you to get to the stage, that is a team endeavor. So maybe that's something I slightly disagree with.
I think that nature of it comes a bit similar to my disagreement, where bodybuilders are looked at like blocking everyone out, nothing else matters. This is all about me. And I do agree that bodybuilding is very selfish, but I do think there's a lot of like you make yourself worse by cutting everyone else out, and you're actually better by embracing a bit more of a team mentality and having people that are on your side. So yeah, I like that.
Mm,
I'll ask the next question to you, Mike. Actually, no, wait, it's your turn.
it's my turn. So Solomon.Roskin, shout out to Solomon. He asks, do you find that it's easier to connect with some muscle groups as opposed to others? For example, many report having trouble feeling their lats.
Yes, absolutely. But it has massively improved after a decade of lifting slash getting towards 2 decades of lifting. Classic example for me, Mike, is my right calf. I used to not be able to, like, sitting here, I can contract both of them. Like, I can just sit here and I can just like turn them on. I don't know if there's any muscles in my body that I can't like I can like flare my lats, I can like dance my pecs, I can turn my quads on, calves on, like hamstrings, whatever, glutes. But my calf, I used to not be able to contract my right one. I have really struggled with that mind muscle connection, and it was smaller. So this is actually maybe something that's debated, right? How important is mind muscle connection? And I understand where some people are coming from to say that it's not important, but I actually think it's massively important because of this fact that if you cannot connect with a muscle, you can't contract it well. It will not grow. And my right calf is smaller than my left because my actual mind muscle connection with my left is far better, but my right has grown and now I can contract it. And I've got that mind muscle connection with it. And you see this in the enhanced side of the sport where they get like nerve endings are like dead, like whatever reason that happens. I don't know why, but you see it because I've seen pages where they've like circled a muscle and been like, they've got nerve damage here and that muscle's atrophied because now they can't connect with it. They're not using that muscle. So yeah, for me, the calf is an easy example. And now most muscle groups I can connect really, really nicely with and don't have a problem. I don't know about you, Mike, but back was an area that I struggled with for a while.
Just a follow-up question on that. Do you feel anything helped you improve your mind muscle connection with your left calf?
The length and partials.
And you were
Yeah,
just
just
constant.
brutalizing them through length and partial training,
Because
really
Cliff
pushing them
Wilson
close to
used to
failure.
encourage like high. He'd sometimes say like he'd recommend higher reps to his clients who struggled
Yeah.
with mind muscle connection.
I do also think higher reps are a good move. I think that allows you to have better concentration, and higher reps tend to also be associated with isolation And isolation is obviously easier to then connect with a single muscle because you're not involving multiple joints or muscles. So I would say, yeah, higher reps and just pushing to failure. Like I think that high intensity and trying to get like pumps and disruption in it, I think those things can be emphasized too much, just like mind muscle connection can be. But I do think they are not to be ignored.
Yeah. I think something for me that I found's really improved is I used to struggle with my muscle connection for hamstrings, particularly with stiff-legged deadlifts. So for a long time, we always used to do pre-fatigue where I do lying leg curls before going into stiff-legged deadlifts. Whereas now I feel it's improved to the point where I can do stiff-legged deadlifts first and I get a great hamstring stimulus. So, and again, I couldn't put that down to anything particular other than time, failure, as you mentioned, and just conscious intention. I think those have been some key things, really.
Yeah, that's great. I'll ask the
Oh,
next
right.
question then. This is from Aaron Busby. Has asked, do you have any clients that do combat sports like BJJ, and how do you balance the hypertrophy and bodybuilding training? Ugh.
I think that I do. So I think one of my clients does a little bit of BJJ, and also I have another client that does jump rope or skipping. And all that, I don't monitor it very rigidly. I just ask them to track the sessions that they do, and that if it's a session that is outside of the norm for them, maybe it's a little bit more intense than normal, I ask that they record it. And we've just talked about managing their training around that accordingly and a split that works for them. And if that changes to the point where it's going to impact their training, then we modify things, but otherwise we keep things relatively the same. But outside of that, there isn't anything special that I do with them.
Yeah, it's similar with me. I have clients that do BJJ. I have some clients that do some running, and we kind of discuss it at the start so that we have the split set up in a way where it's not kind of, for example, doing one of their speed runs before a leg day. It's more like, hey, let's try and combine some of the more recovery runs after a leg day, and then so we and space them apart so that you're not kind of training legs all the time. It's like a hard leg session, then you can do some running, and then you have a bit of rest and recovery. Or similar with like BJJ, maybe it's more upper body, so then you just make sure that that's placed in a way that is letting you recover and still train hard and isn't leading to unnecessary joint and connective tissue fatigue and stuff like this. But I will say everyone who does that, bodybuilding is their main priority. And so I think similar to you, it's not like we take crazy care because like what we're doing is most important. And then their other kind of thing is a hobby and they just do it on the side. And it's more like fun and enjoyment and maybe some cardio. And so it's more that would need to be modified versus what we're doing fundamentally together. But if you auto regulate your training, a lot of these things take care of themselves. Like I don't know if I do, I doubt it. But if one of my clients started doing something and they just weren't telling me, we just see it would come out in the training. They'd start getting joint connective tissue fatigue, or performance would start going down. We might need to modify, and we would just do that accordingly. So I think so long as you're auto-regulating things in a clever and intelligent manner, you're going to take care of those.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think we need to overanalyze it too much. Exactly what you just said. All
Cool.
right. We've
We
done
finished
that
that question
section.
box.
Woo. Right. Here we go. Eloise asks, how do you deal with overuse injuries or minor pains in joints such as shoulder and elbow issues?
So it's a great question for Mike, but I'll talk about it from my perspective. Is I try and get clients to highlight those sort of things to me as early as possible. So using kind of a pain scale out of 10, similar to what you talk about, Mike, it's like once we're getting towards like a 2 or 3, I want to know about it. And then I want to make sure it's not getting worse. And so I'll just talk to them. And quite often it doesn't get worse. But if it's starting to get worse, then it's a case of, right, we probably want to start modifying it if it's something that's getting towards a 5 and maybe starting to breach a 5. And then it's looking at what's the smallest adjustments we can make first. So it's like grip position or training modality. Can we just switch that, or rep range or tempo? Can we do that before we start modifying something a bit more global, going to have a larger impact, such as volume? So I'd first try and navigate it via that. And then if it needed to come to it, it would start to be tapering back volume a little bit, whether or not that be like an actual like full pullback where we do like a reactive deload for that joint, or what have you, or if we just scale volume back like 25% or something like that, shave off a few sets, let that kind of inflammation and fatigue reduce before ramping it back up again. So it's very individual to individual, but those are some of the ways that at least I look at it. And then if those weren't solving it, I'd probably then look to reach out to like Mike and be like, what rehab or prehab might be needed in this situation. But quite often, 9 times out of 10, if you're clever about flagging it up early, you make some smart adjustments, you can continue to like cook on this muscle, like on these muscles, and it will fade over time. Like my elbows, as an example, they've come up the last few weeks and it's definitely getting better every week now. It's still there, but like, again, I'm being smart. I changed some modalities and they are improving, and it's not impeded my ability to, I haven't had to pull back volume either. So that's been great.
Love it. Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think the only things that I would add is that I think with overuse injuries or minor pains is they very rarely come out of nowhere. You can feel something coming on, like you said, and like you said, it might be just like a 2 out of 10, and you're something like, oh, what's that kind of thing, and it's like, oh, okay, well, don't ignore it, stay attuned to it, dynamically what's happening to it over time. And if it's getting a little bit more, like you said, we can just modify, because it might just be the very thing with overuse injuries is it's repetitive overload in a sense. And it's like, okay, well, in that particular plane of motion or movement pattern, maybe we just need to give that a break. So we just give that tissue a breather. We find a different movement pattern or a different way of stimulating the muscle, but in a different variation that offloads that specific area or tissue, then we're good to go. And I think the majority, you've got lots of different factors which sometimes go into, a recovery from pain or injury. There might be an element of, rehab exercise, but a big portion of that is removing the instigating factor. So, and like you said, what if we've removed the instigating factor, which just might be just a bit too much of working through one range of movement, once we take that away, we've just kind of we've created the environment for, for the recovery. And it's like, right, you want to create it. I use this analogy sometimes with patients where it's like, right, well, if you create an environment for muscle growth to occur, but the same thing with injury, it's like you want to create an environment for recovery to occur as well. And so that means, you remove the aggravating factors, you might offload it, you might be, get some movement, general blood flow, etc., and you go from there. So I think, like, I would always consider that as well.
Lovely. Nothing to add. We can get to the
Woohoo!
next question. Well done.
All right. So, is it? Oh yeah, you're asking this to me.
I just asked that one, didn't I?
Okay.
No,
Cool.
wait, I did. Sorry, I'm such an idiot. It doesn't really matter, does it? Like, the listeners just ask the damn question. Patrick Morris. I understand the concept of MEV, MRV. So for the listeners, MEV, minimum effective volume, the least volume you need to see a growth response. MRV, max recoverable volume, the most volume you can recover from, and you could repeat. And junk volume. So junk volume being you're going through the motions. It's not actually leading to more hypertrophy. It's just leading to more fatigue. But I struggle to tell if I'm doing it / reached it. There was no question, Mike, but riff.
So I think this is a good question, and this is something that, we've talked about over the years for some time. And I think a couple of things which I would consider is that when you're considering and when you're becoming aware of the stimulus that you're getting in the training, the muscle group that you're training might get a certain stimulus, and you've got to ask yourself, if I did another set, would it improve the stimulus? And if the answer is no, then you're probably leaking in you could say you're hedging your bets into leaking into junk volume, or at least volume that's not having an additive effect. So I think that's one key question. And then another key question, which Steve, you said to me in our check-in this week, which I thought was awesome, is does doing another set excite me? And you said that to me, and I think that was an awesome question because maybe physically you could do another set, but if it doesn't excite you and you can't put your all into it, then again, in my mind, that would come under the category of junk volume as well. So I would probably just consider those two questions and then kind of go from there.
I think that's really nice, like biofeedback that you can use to navigate this, because people want objective black and white numbers, and that's really hard because there's so many moving parts, including how recovered you are, which both of these are related to recovery to some extent, also nutritional phase. So like minimum effective volume, you just want to have an idea that you're achieving that. First of all, you can go off, okay, what's the science tend to say? It tends to say in around that maybe 6 to 10 set mark, hard sets, mostly compound lifts for a muscle group, I'm likely achieving minimum effective volume. That's probably a good shout. So if I'm in and around that, I can be already semi-confident. And then if I'm in a session, particularly when you're thinking about MEV for a session, and I prefer stimulus, so MES, I guess, then you can think about, do I feel like I challenged that muscle? Did it feel like it was tired afterwards? Did I see performance like dropping off set to set that I would expect because I fatigued it well? Did it get a pump? Did it get any soreness? Did it, again, feel tired, tight? And like I worked myself. If you were like, no, I just feel fresh. The next day I felt like I hadn't trained it at all, like nothing, then yeah, you're probably under it. But if you felt something there, you're probably doing a pretty damn good job. So that's where I kind of view that end of the spectrum. And then the upper end, MRV, thankfully, is a bit more objective because it's literally repeating performance. So if you're repeating performance, you did 100 by 10, 8, 6, and then the next week you did 100 by 10, 8, 6. That's kind of like an objective. You are recovered, but only just recovered. There's been no adaptations really that have taken place. So I think that at least is a bit more obvious. And then you can go into what you said there, Mike, and be like, right, does adding an extra set, does it excite me? And when I do that, do I get a bit more stimulus in terms of pump disruption, or does it even make it worse, or it just maintains? And if you get to that point, you might not be at MRV, you don't necessarily know, but you're certainly at that point of like massively diminishing returns and that point of undetectable growth, basically. So PUOS for a session. So yeah, I'm just expanding on what you said, basically.
Yeah, no, that was cool. That was really cool, but nothing else to add.
Nice.
So Esqui asks, can you go into detail about your current splits and reasoning behind them?
No, you have to pay me. uh, that's a lot to break down. I've done vlogs previously on my split, and so I would recommend, if that's how you say it, Esqui, to look those up. Like, go to YouTube. You're on YouTube maybe now, but if you're not, then I've gone over like my upper lower split. I think I've gone over my like push pull leg split, or push legs pull that I'm running at the moment, and I've gone into it in some detail, but without having it up on the screen and like walking you through it, it's really hard. Like, my very basic answer would be, I select exercises that provide a great SFR. I run a frequency where I can train a muscle, but then it recovers and I train it again. So I follow like principles of stimulus, stress response adaptation curves, and I train with a level of volume that maximizes the stimulus that I can recover from and continue to adapt to, and I kind of run that into the ground for as long as I can. And I guess the same answer would be the same for you, Mike, in terms of principles, but the principles are what matter, right? So at least I've drawn out some of those.
Yeah. No, I don't have much else to say because it's very much the same thing. And I guess the only other thing to add is we also use, um, our bodybuilding competitions, the feedback from the photos and the judges and our results and what we think to guide our focus points in our training as well. So I think that's a big part. So there's kind of an evolution almost. And again, like I think, Esqui, if you kind of watch some of the vlogs or some of the YouTube vlogs about kind of our competitions and our experiences, that'll probably give you a flavor for, our reasoning behind the training.
Yeah, as an example, push is first in my week. One, because on the weekend my steps tend to be higher, and so I kind of was like, it's probably a good idea not to do legs first. And then also because Monday's chest day, right? I should have said that first. But also because chest is a big priority for me at the moment. So that's just, like you said, a bit of an insight into that. And like lateral delts, you'll find them at the start of like all my sessions, apart from one, which I did today. But the majority of my sessions, they're first within there because I need to work on, I don't have the clavicle width, so I need to make up for it somehow. And it's the same sort of things can be applied to your split as well, Mike. So shall I ask you the next question?
Yeah.
So John Freelove has asked, if first 4 years of training is subpar with poor nutrition...
Have you skipped the question? Manji Machine.
Sorry, I did. So Manji Machine, thank you. Train first thing in the morning or train at the end of the day?
So for me, and I do this at the moment, I train first thing in the day because I don't necessarily, particularly on the days that I work in the clinic, I don't have the option. Well, I actually experimented with training in the middle of the day, but I found that it was such a rush to leave the clinic on time to get to the gym. I had like a finite window. It was quite tricky for me. But for me personally, I just feel like I have a lot of mental clarity in the morning, and that allows me to perform at my best, within the confines of, my schedule and my job at the moment. So for me, it's always first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I think the reason I laughed at this question was I was just like, whenever you can. This is my answer. I took it as like, as if they were asking for themselves. I was like, whenever you can, train your best. And I think that's what you just basically said for yourself. First thing in the morning is when you can give your best to training. For me, I train after I've done like my core work. So it's more the middle of the day. It's actually pushed back over time. It's pushed back. And so I train at about 1 p.m. Between 1 and 3 is when I typically train. And that's because I can get, like you said, I'm kind of mentally quite clear in the morning. So I put that to use with work and I get like my core work done in the morning. Then I want a break. So I use training as a nice break. And then I come back and do some more later. So that's my reasoning for it. But yeah, whenever you can really is when I would suggest to train.
Awesome.
Next question.
Right. Now, John Freelove, John asks, if the first 4 years of training is subpar with poor nutrition, is that still classed as 4 training years and additional newbie gains missed?
So the great thing with being a newbie is anything works. So like being subpar, there is no real like optimal when you're first getting into the gym. Just go into the gym, have fun, train hard, train safe, and have fun. And yes, there is probably more or less optimal approaches. Like if you're eating like no protein and you're picking terrible exercises through short ranges of motion and what have you, and you're not controlling the lifts and I don't know, whatever it is, But I'm assuming you haven't done that. And at the end of the day, this sort of question, and I don't mean anything against you, John, but these sort of questions to some extent frustrate me because I see people focusing on things that just bear no relevance. It's like, what if you haven't, great. If you have, also, like, what are you going to do about it? It's kind of similar to genetics, right? How do I know if I have good or bad genetics? It's like, man, does it really matter? Like, you just, either you enjoy what you're doing, you're getting results that you want. And if you're not, then you decide, hey, if I'm investing too much into this, maybe I want to pull back and it's not for me. It's kind of, I just kind of look at it like that. I'm like, hey, like it's nothing you can control, coming to like the Stoic philosophy in that regard. So like, I can't, again, poor is subjective, subpar is subjective. Again, when you're a newbie, that stuff, people can grow from cycling, can't they? So it's like you're going to grow like a weed initially anyway. If it was subpar, then yeah, you probably have more gains on the table. What I can say is when clients come to me, probably the same for you, Mike, they have a background of training nutrition. Quite often it hasn't been quote unquote optimal, and we level up their nutrition, their sleep, their training, and they can recomp very often and they get somewhat newbie like gains. They see at least a growth spurt because they just do everything better. So I do think if there's been something that hasn't been quite on point for you, you level it all up, you're going to gain as well as, if not better than. And I've certainly seen that in my lifting career where I've seen like growth spurts where I've just, something's clicked for me or whatever it is. I've just managed my processes better. So ultimately, it's nothing I would concern myself. Just focus on doing a fantastic job and you'll get the results you get.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the only maybe thing I'd just add is that if if there is a lesson to be learned from, because like you said, I think ultimately it's outside of your control, and there is no point looking back at it because you can't change it. But at the same time, if there's a lesson to be gleaned from that, then great, take it, learn from it, and apply it moving forward. So again, you're turning it into your control. But like you said, it's gone, and you can't change it. And actually, there's probably not many lessons. There might not be any lessons to learn from it. So you're just better off just let it go, forget it, and just focus on what you're doing right now and on moving forwards.
Yeah, I think that's a good point in terms of lessons. So I always like to look at like, I know this is something you're really like, Mike, and I will sometimes roll my eyes at it, where it's like there are no failures, just lessons. Like I know you'll love that sort of quote, and I do as well. But I do somewhat like roll my eyes at it at the same time. So I'm like, oh, okay, get it. Anyway, I can ask you the next question then, which is from NJ Logs. Should you stop cutting and switch to maintenance if your recovery is compromised temporarily with poor sleep and high stress?
I guess the Yeah, I guess the critical question for me to provide a bit of context to this would be like how long is temporarily? Because if we're talking a couple of days, then I'd be like, no. If we're talking a week, I might even be like, no. But if we're talking like a month, then like, or a couple of months, I might be like, oh, maybe it's just worth putting pause on things and waiting next year. Because and I think there are other questions that you can ask on this because um because it might be stress that you can't control as well. Because I had a conversation with a client today about how work is just busy at the moment. And, but it's like, hey, work has to take priority for him. He isn't a competitive bodybuilder, or they weren't a competitive bodybuilder. And it's like, right, so work has to take priority right now. So maybe this isn't the time to really dig deep with fat loss phase. Maybe we just put the brakes on for a second. And then when work dies down, and you've got time to get sleep back in check, get steps back in check. Um, maybe that's the time. But I think ultimately consider just like, right, how long is the recovery going to be compromised for? Because like we can get away with a couple of days, we could probably get away with a week, but anything beyond that, we probably can't get away with. So I guess that would be my answer.
Yeah, really nicely said. If those that didn't hear me whisper to Mike at the start of that, I was like, sounds like comp prep. Poor sleep, high stress. It's like inevitable towards the end of comp prep for majority of people. A lot of people hold on to their sleep really well. Mike is an example. I have Jake, who we've spoken about on here. His sleep is actually it's like 5 out of 5. He's smashing it. But a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people have compromised sleep, at least to some extent. And competing is stressful. Getting to extreme levels of body fat is stressful. And so in that case, it's like that's par for the course. You have to just take that on the chin. If you've got more body fat to lose and you don't have the timeline for it, you can't just bring things up to maintenance. But we use diet breaks, refeeds, we slow the rate of loss, and we manage variables as best we can to keep sleep as good as possible and stress as low as possible. But at some point, they're both going to be to some extent compromised. But outside of competitive conditions, exactly as you said, I really don't like it when people just immediately they're like, I don't know, just one day they have a poor night's sleep and suddenly they're like, right, I'm taking a deload and I'm increasing calories to maintenance. I'm like, man, the body's way more resilient than that. So I think what you said there is perfect in terms of time course. If it's a day, a week, if it starts being weeks, then yes, we need to do something there because ultimately your performance will show. And if your performance in the gym is just dropping, you can be pretty certain that there's going to be some muscle loss involved if that keeps going. So you definitely want to manage that, and getting out of a deficit is going to help. So yeah, great answer there, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. And so the next question from Adaptable Strength, they ask, sorry, tips for mini cutting. How steep? Cardio good or bad? Duration? Question mark.
So Google mini cut manual, and our article might be the first one that comes up. We've also spoken about mini cuts at length on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, but just to give you some quick answers to these. So how steep? On average, aiming for about a 1% rate of loss per week. So if you are 150 pounds, aiming for a £1.50 drop per week is great. For a lot of people, that's going to be between 1.5 to £2 per week. Cardio, good or bad? I wouldn't say it's necessarily good or bad. I always side with not trying to use it, and I prefer like steps, but it can be more time efficient to do cardio. I would just not rely on it too heavily. I tend to prefer to rely on steps and also on calorie intake as a whole. And then duration, it's a mini cut. So I say if there's anything more than 6 weeks, it starts not to really become a mini cut. But if you find that you need to, for whatever reason, extend it past 6 weeks, that's fine. You just probably can't keep up that rate of loss. You want to slow things down. That'd be my like very quick answer to this question, but there's loads of
I love
information
it.
that we've put out on it.
Yeah, that was great. I obviously have nothing to add because you summarized it really well. So
Nice. Right. I'll ask you the next question then, Mike. Dr. Jared Rice, so our man Jared. The Revive
yeah.
Stronger podcast should hit episode 500. Oh, this might not be a question for you. Episode 500 around the end of the year. Anything special planned? And is Mike... Oh, okay, no, it's a question for you as well. And is Mike getting a home gym? So are you getting a home gym, Mike?
Unfortunately, no, because the house isn't really conducive to a home gym because I don't have a garage or anything like that, and there isn't anywhere to put the equipment. So, unfortunately, not. But you know, is what it is.
Jared is from the US. And I think in the US, I think Jared has generally a good perspective on this, but in the UK, home gyms are not common. Just like they're just not common. Houses in the UK are much smaller generally. They're often terraced houses, so no kind of gaps between them. Lots of them don't have garages, like you said, Mike. So home gyms just are way less common actually in the UK than in the US. Like I have a number of US, and I've had a number of US clients who have home gyms, but yeah, unfortunately here. And you have a great gym that's, what is it now, a 20-minute cycle away?
No, 10-minute cycle.
10 minutes. Nice.
Yeah, and it's a great gym, similar to Yorkies in a lot of ways. And it sometimes it's actually good. It gets you just out of the house a little bit, gets you in a different environment, gets you, n- uh, not always, but there's a tiny element of social element to it. Even if you're just seeing other people sometimes, I think there's positive aspects to it.
Out of interest, Mike, how would you rate your Norton versus Yorkies?
Action. The My gym is bigger, I would say. There's definitely more space. It's more of a warehouse vibe. Um, I would say there's probably a tiny bit more equipment variety, a tiny bit. Um, but there's also, and it's, yeah, they're quite similar because there is a nice atmosphere in Yorkies and the pictures and stuff's quite cool. There is a bit of a cool vibe. So,
If
mm,
you had to pick one to train at,
I think I'd probably pick my gym.
that makes me sad, but happy for you.
Sorry,
That's, I
but we'll
guess, what
just
I was
all
getting
migrate
to.
to
Like,
La Coach.
but they're pretty similar. Like, there's not much between
Yeah.
them. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Le Coach, yeah, it's very, very good. In terms of episode 500, good question, Jared. We are definitely approaching that. And at the moment, there is nothing special planned. But if anyone has ideas, do let me know. I would love, you know what I'd love to do? For episode 100, it was a roundtable. It was the first roundtable between Eric Helms, Mike Israetel, Mena Henselmans. I'd love to be able to do those again, like episode 500, get them all on again. And maybe if I reach out to them way ahead of time, I might be able to get that scheduled. But I'd want a really juicy topic to talk about if that was the case. So if anyone has any ideas, you can comment them in, reach out to me or comment them on YouTube. That'd be fantastic. But at the moment,
Yeah.
I don't have anything, but I think it's a good idea. I haven't really done like a special episode since episode 100. It's just been just typical weekly episodes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to do that. Yeah.
That would be super cool. That'd be super cool. But back to our man Solomon Roskin. He asks, do you think the average gym goer should incorporate some bodybuilding habits into their routine, or is that expecting too much?
I don't think it's expecting too much at all. I think absolutely they should, because I really just look at bodybuilders are the extreme of muscle gain, fat loss. And so there's so much that can be learned from what they do, but you can just pull it back massively. So, like, things like bodybuilding habits would be meeting their protein intake every day. It would be having an idea of energy balance. It would be having a form of activity in their day, well, like weightlifting, taking care of their sleep. These are all just really healthy, amazing things for any gym goer to do. Having progressive overload in their program, that's something they definitely could get into the habit of as an average gym goer. That's the mistake I see the majority of like average gym goers doing, is they just go through the motions in the gym. I literally saw it the other day. There was a guy like supersetting stuff. He was just like running between exercises, and he just like, I see him finish his pull-ups. I was like, there was no rep slow down in any of those. He didn't look tired at all after it, and he just moved straight into another thing. So yeah, I think they could learn a ton from bodybuilders. Are like the extreme experts in this area. They don't have to take it anywhere near as far as bodybuilders do, but some of the big basics, absolutely. I don't know if anything crops up for you, Mike.
Yeah, like you said, even if there was just one or two things someone could take, and it might be just like, again, research has shown that just by having a higher protein intake, sedentary people can gain muscle mass. And it's like, that's huge. So, like, if people just increase their protein intake a little bit, for some people, that might be enough just to maintain a bit of muscle mass, which will help when it comes to aging. There's so many problems in terms of osteoporosis, bone mineral density issues, which we know, like, I think, resistance training, I think, is even more effective than running in terms of aiding, bone mineral density and bone health. And it's like, wow, even if they maybe, other things aren't in check, but maybe if they're just doing a bit of resistance training twice a week, like, it's a win. And just finally, you know, how bodybuilding's helped me in terms as a physio even, it's getting people to think about what they're trying to work. So it might be like, oh, in order to, help you recover from this back injury, we need to get your hips a little bit stronger. It's like, right, well, I need you to feel where you're working. I need you to feel your glutes, kind of thing. And it's like, right, so I'm, getting them to really focus on that mind muscle connection with their glutes. And, I might not even say mind muscle connection, but that's what I'm doing. And, that's just how bodybuilding can help people, average people recover from injury. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that. People view bodybuilding as like this really extreme endeavor. It's like, actually, especially the way we approach it at Revive Stronger, like, it's just a lifestyle. That there's so many lessons and like a healthy lifestyle that you can take and apply to many aspects in life. It's like, the really, actually had this chat with a client, Tim, in the gym. He was like, he really likes bodybuilding and taking it seriously because it's one place in life where he purposely puts himself in discomfort. Like, when you take a set to those hard reps at the end or to failure, like, your body just doesn't want to do them, but you push through that discomfort and you progress it. Like, you finish, like, leg press is horrendous but amazing at the same time. It's horrendous when you're doing it, but then after you finish that, complete the set, you're like, wow, the sense of achievement I have from that. And like, the number of people I think who could do with some of that discomfort, that kind of yin and yang of life, it would just help them in other areas of discomfort in their life too. So I think there's so much to be gained. Shall I ask you the next question, Mike?
Can I just quote the
Yeah.
t-shirt from Rascal Apparel? But did you die? That's it.
So, and on that note, Rascal, if you want to get a discount off any of their clothing, use code STRONGER.
Way,
Use
segue.
code, I'm wearing Never Skip
Maste.
Master.
Maste.
Trying to show I can show it very well. I should have just stood up, shouldn't I?
I've ordered some new Rascal Apparel, just a little side tangent. Got the bat
Have you?
wings and some
Oh,
new
yeah.
bottoms. So I'm excited for them to come.
What bottoms did you get?
They are half, so one's black and the other is orange stripes, orange tiger.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're the split ones. I really like their retro ones that I've had recently. Has like a white stripe down it.
Is that so? The black and white stripes?
No, they're not a dump cover. They're like retro. So they're a different fit and they're a different material. They're a bit more lightweight and very stretchy. Yeah, they're
Yes.
very nice. But yeah. Anyway, I digress.
So much.
Yeah, there's I have some stuff on the way actually. Some longer shorts because these ones are very short. So these are a
Hmm.
bit longer. So I'm looking forward to those. I got the same color as you have that I complimented you, the black and white ones. They're great. I have a vest coming, stringer, or like the same sort of fit as this. It's like their mesh ones. And I think that they have their classic compression shorts coming. So they're like, I haven't worn compression shorts in ages, but I'm looking forward to wearing some of these and look like a skinny white Ronnie Coleman with my I think I got like the yellow and black stripes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get some of those.
Yeah, buddy.
So I'll
Last
ask you
question.
from Martin Coy Pers has asked, what's a typical timeline for a 20-week prep of weight loss percent wise or kg a week?
What's a typical timeline?
I can start if
Now,
you're
would this also depend on where someone is starting from to a certain degree? But yeah.
yeah, I think it's a bit of a backwards way of asking the question in terms of like we would always take a client, look at their physique, get a rough ballpark of where we think their body weight would need to be stage lean, and then we'd map out backwards from there how long we would need. So yeah, it's a bit of a, I guess you could take it as if someone has 20 weeks to prep, what sort of weight loss would you be looking to lose in that period of time? 20 weeks is a reasonable time to prep, to be fair.
Yeah, it's not short by any
Or
stretch, but
where would you want them starting? Like, how much weight would you have them to lose?
I think to begin with, I would be anywhere from like 1 to 2% of body weight per week. And then as it got closer, I'd probably want to slow. So that could probably continue for, I would say anywhere from maybe, 10 to kind of 16 weeks potentially. I mean, that would still
One to two
be,
percent,
well, not 2%, but definitely
even 1%, 10 weeks.
1%. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
you know,
spicy.
but then, like, after, I think around that 10 to 15 week mark, then slow things down, kind of 0.5%, and then just keep things kind of cooking from there. Then when you get really close, maybe within the kind of 2 to 3 week mark, again, we probably just slow things down even more.
Yeah, the way Mike's describing that and the way you've described that, Mike, is I don't know why I'm talking. I'm like talking to you, but also talking to the listeners. That's so odd. Anyway, is essentially your rate of loss is why have I forgotten what the word I'm looking for? It's essentially aligned with the amount of body fat you have to lose. The leaner you get, the less body fat you should be losing because the more likely you're going to start compromising muscle tissue there. And whenever I think of like comp preps, I always just think a good rule of thumb is a pound per week. Generally, I like more weeks than pounds to lose because I still think a pound per week, like 20 pounds in 20 weeks, that's still fairly aggressive. But yeah, like you said, a bit more aggressive out the gates and then slow things right down to the point where you're not even really looking at the scale for adjustments there. And I will say more time is generally better because it can be bad to have that you can have too much time, but only if you inappropriately diet someone through that. As in, if you have 30 weeks, but you only needed 20 and you just dieted for 30 weeks, that's a problem. But if you have 30 weeks and you took 10 of those weeks to put in, like, dropped in some refeeds or you took a whole diet break in between or whatever it is, then suddenly that 20 weeks is like you probably maintained more muscle. Maybe you've grown some muscle in phases. You've had some opportunities to practice peaking. You've been able to like eat up into shows. So yeah, anyway, I just
No, that's
say
awesome.
that.
Yeah, yeah. No, perfect.
Wow, we made it onto actually this week's
What?
question box. We have crushed it. We still have
Oh,
20 minutes to go as well. So we can get through some of these. I feel very good about this, guys.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, you can ask the first question, I guess.
All right. So Bryce Stein asks, loved the Mario Tomic episode. Whose perspective isn't based solely on bodybuilding? Similarly, would love a Joe Delaney episode. Any chance of that?
So Mario, I really enjoyed that podcast with Mario. He is, by the way, he's like whose perspective isn't based solely on bodybuilding. Yeah, I guess it isn't solely on bodybuilding, but he takes his bodybuilding very seriously. He has a very well developed physique. And I think there's many lessons bodybuilders can take from someone like Mario. And that's been a bit of a theme for this podcast, isn't it? Like people looking at bodybuilders as if there are these like crazy extreme individuals that don't take life into consideration. And yeah, I like to think that bodybuilders can be much more balanced individuals than that, especially outside of comp prep. But Joe Delaney, do you even know who he is, Mike?
Do you know Joe
You do?
Delaney? Yeah,
Yeah, he's an
wasn't
OG
he?
now, right?
Sorry,
He's an OG now, right?
pretty much back from the like, early 2000s or before then.
Something like that. He's been
Yeah.
around a long time, but I don't see any of his stuff now. I know his name. I know he's in pretty good shape. He has long hair, I think,
Mm,
generally.
mhm.
But he's probably of a platform size that wouldn't be interested on coming on the podcast. I'm not sure. I don't know how many followers he has, but I imagine it's less than Mario. But if anyone knows of him or knows a way of getting in touch with him, let me know, because
Yeah.
I think that would be cool to kind of interview someone like that, similar to interviewing like a Alex Leonidas, kind of similar to interviewing Mario, like just kind of people who have been in the space a long time, keep a breath of the evidence out there, and yeah, share a lot of great information. Yeah. Shall I ask you the
There's
next
always,
question?
yeah, go for it.
Sean J. Dutton has asked, training straight from waking at home, can't stomach whey protein, is it worth taking BCAA or EAA?
I think the most important thing is that you're not hungry, and I don't think I'm certainly not for BCAAs, and maybe for EAAs, but to be honest with you, I think it depends on your goals and how much you're, you know, potentially, how much you're like, the percenters, but we're talking about a tiny, tiny, tiny percent with the EAAs, and I just probably wouldn't even say it's worth taking BCAAs or EAAs. I'd say what you can get though is you can get these clear whey isolates, and so which are more like juice kind of flavors, and so you could just have something like that, and then kind of sip it whilst you're training. But otherwise, I'd say the most important thing is if you're not hungry and you feel you can still perform well, training immediately after waking at home, then I would say that that's probably the most important thing. And then you just have, a protein dose kind of, whenever after your training session.
Yeah, well answered. I was going to bring up the clear wheys, the whey isolates, because they essentially dissolve into a shake just like a EAA would, which would just absolve this issue completely. So if you just wanted to be like, oh, I can't stomach whey, EAA or BCAA, why not get both of EAAs and BCAAs and do a clear whey? Probably also cheaper that way as well. But there's no need to, like, protein is not the first thing I would go to on waking for training performance. Like you said, it appears to be that being hungry or not before your workout is important, i.e., don't be hungry going in. So abating that. And then also being hydrated is key. So the whey isolate would help with hydration in this case. So getting in that beforehand. But I'd be more looking at like carbohydrates. So I'd be looking at, if you were hungry, getting in even just like an apple or something with some sugars, easy to digest, some fruit, some raisins, like anything would be really helpful. But I would likely in this situation look at someone who cares about those one percenters, especially if they were maybe dieting or maybe their last meal before bed wasn't that carb heavy and quite far before bed. You might want to look at like a dextrose and a whey isolate or an EAA kind of intra workout that you could start drinking before your workout, finish like halfway through your session, and you have your bases covered. It also somewhat depends on when you're able to get your post workout meal in. If you can get it pretty soon afterwards, like there's absolutely no stress about getting protein in. But if it's like going to be quite delayed, then yeah, I would try and get some protein in and around that time. But you could just drink, like if, for example, if you were not hungry and you're hydrated, you could just not worry about anything and just have a post-workout meal, and you basically covered all your bases. So yeah, it's just if your volume is relatively high or if it's a big leg session, you find yourself switching off towards the end, that's where like a dextrose or some easy to digest kind of sugars would come in.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes I also quite like recommending more of the water-based fruits. So if you think about maybe a melon, grapes, kiwi, or something like that, because that has the dual factor of like you've got a little bit of kind of fructose and energy, but it's also because of the water content, it's like a bit hydrating as well. So they can sometimes be nice go-tos as well.
Yeah, watermelon is a great shout for that. Very hydrating.
Yeah.
I have a very quick story on watermelon because we've got quite deep through questions, so I feel good about that. So I'm going to give us a real tangent here. This is such a tangent. Whenever I think about watermelon, I think about this though. So as you know, Mike, I had a head injury, and that led to me being unable to manage my electrolytes. My sodium levels were like very, very low, so I was on fluid restriction. And this is where the watermelon comes in, because the fluid restriction I was on was 250 mils. So think of that as like, I don't know if that's much bigger than like, Mike Israel's Genius shot. It's probably similar size to that. Or like for those in the UK, they're like those smoothies, innocent smoothies. I used to have one of those bottles and just fill it up as F all amounts of fluids. And I was on like work experience, and they had like a buffet for lunch, and they had watermelon. And I was just like, piling in this watermelon, not thinking about the fluid content of it, because I was like, it's just food, right? But this is a long time ago, like over 10 years ago now. And then the next day I was screwed. Like I was vomiting. I was like really, really fatigued because I put myself into like a low sodium state, basically hypoatremic, I think it's called. So yeah, that's my little story on watermelon and how it definitely hydrates you, even when you don't intend to be, when you don't need it.
Did you literally become melon head?
Actually, salt on watermelon is meant to be really good. Or some people do mustard. I think I've seen people do
Oh,
mustard on watermelon.
that's different. Never
I'm
heard
not
of that.
recommending it. I'm just saying I think I've seen it.
Ah, interesting. There you go.
Right. Next question. Is it me or you? I can't even
I think
remember.
it's you.
Me. I can always
No,
forget these.
no, it's me. No, sorry, it's me because you asked me the last question.
Okay.
Sorry. Um, what would your perfect bodybuilding vacation look like from
Oh,
Hige?
adapt and grow, my man, Hige.
Yeah.
My perfect. So I basically described that at the start of the episode, didn't I?
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is better weather would have been appreciated. Not that the weather was terrible, but a bit clearer skies, shorts and t-shirt weather. That would have been really nice. And man, outside of that, like a great training session, some really nice coffee, some really good food. Maybe watching some anime or like a Star Wars film. That would be pretty fucking cool. It's a perfect bodybuilding vacation. So I don't know if anyone follows Jackson Pios, but he's ran some of these like camps in Bali, and they just look awesome. Bali, first of all, like really cool place, like really nice nature, great kind of beaches and jungles and all of that fun stuff. And then like he has an incredible gym there, and he has like his own restaurant that provides loads of food that's like all bodybuilding friendly, but and has all the macros, but is like super tasty. So that would be pretty freaking cool to do something like that for a week and just hang out with like-minded individuals and like chill of an evening. That'd be great.
Yeah. Mine's pretty much identical. So it'd just be like great gym, good weather, ideally warm weather, sunny, and just like hanging out, very chilled, relaxed vibe. Good food, you know, and good coffee. And it doesn't even necessarily have to specifically be like, a bodybuilding specific restaurant, but just like good food around. And yeah, like you said, just with like-minded individuals. Yeah, that would be me to a T.
Maybe we should try and throw something like a London training camp. We did a little mini one, but maybe for a bit longer. And it couldn't be London. We need to get some cheaper accommodation and somewhere that has a bit more nature. Maybe Cambridge.
There you go.
Next
There you go.
question.
Yep, yep, yep.
So Jesse_Benson has asked, okay to do high and low cal days in a cut, but during a bulk, heard it may limit hypertrophy. Is MPS impacted by energy balance daily versus weekly?
So Interesting question, but to my knowledge, no. In the sense that I think you can do high and low calorie days in during a bulk because that's literally what you did, Steve, before going into contest prep, I think. And I don't see how being in a calorie surplus, utilizing high and low calorie days would limit hypertrophy in and would limit muscle protein synthesis in any way. Um, yeah,
So I guess I can answer it a bit separately. So MPS is definitely impacted by energy balance. Like if you're in a calorie deficit, your muscle protein breakdown is higher, and I think MPS is also potentially reduced. So I think that does play a role. However, in the context, and you mentioned me, in my context, it was like a small surplus near a maintenance and then like a refeed much larger. So I would just hazard people to go too low or too high on either end of the spectrum. I think that's where things might get funky, where if you're suddenly in like a, don't know, 1,000 calorie surplus one day and then 1,000 calorie deficit one day, there's going to be some impact on physiology there related to nutrition, let alone then your training performance and recovery is going to be negatively impacted probably on that kind of energy, high energy deficit day. So the way we tend to run it is you can have high and low days, but try and maintain that within like a 20% band. So if you're on like, you want 3,000 calories at the end of the week, you can go as high as 3,006 one day and as low as like 2,400 one day, but don't go lower or higher than that. That starts to become, for me as well, a little bit like binge eating and purging. And I don't like encouraging that. Some people even don't like that during like diet periods, like refeeds like that, because it does have that kind of rebound effect and that sort of thing. But I think you weren't thinking of the potential extremes that I'm mentioning there. So I just thought I'd add that as an aside.
I think that was a great caveat because I literally hadn't considered people taking it to that extreme. So yeah, yeah, good caveat.
I think for some people, what could work really nicely, I'm going to trial this with one of my clients, is he is transitioning to being more lifestyle than bodybuilding. So one of the things that's helping him with that is having a bit more calorie freedom on the weekends. And he wants to be in like a maintenance, so very small surplus. So basically, we're on like maintenance through the week, and he gets his weekly surplus just through the weekend. And so that can be a nice way for a lot of people to go about those sort of things. I think that can work well for people.
Definitely. Yeah.
Next
Cool.
question.
So I think Aaron, we've already answered Aaron Busby's question because he
Oh yeah, we
asks,
have.
so we can kind of go over that
Skip
because
it.
we've answered
Yeah.
it. And Beamy asks, would you rather achieve pro status in a different federation or improve your placing at WMBF Worlds given your poor stage experience?
Definitely the latter versus the former. Um, yeah, I just think the WMBF, pro to be pro in the WMBF is already a high standard. I would say it's of a standard of any other federation. And so I already see if I've been able to achieve it in the WMBF, it should be achievable given the right circumstances on another federation stage. So I kind of, and that's why I believe, speaking of AJ Morris, in his show at the end of the year, there's pro classes, like pros can come compete. And if you're a WMBF pro, you can compete as a pro. Like you don't have to qualify as a PMBA pro or what have you. You're kind of pro caliber already. So the WMBF already has that kind of like, if you're a pro in the WMBF, it should mean you're like of a standard of a natural bodybuilding pro of any federation. That's kind of the way I think it, in my head. So to then compete amongst pros and do better amongst pros is more, means much more to me. So yeah, that would mean a lot. And yeah, it's funny actually she asks this because literally I go onto my Facebook and I just check bits and pieces there daily. And I went on my page today. I was getting some photos because it's Charlotte's birthday soon and I'm going to do a little photo book for her. And I saw my world's kind of photos come up and I just went through them again and assessed them. And I do this every now and then. I assess my stage photos. I'm like, oh. I don't know if you ever do that, Mike. Do you ever go through your old like stage photos and just like, oh man, whatever it is, you critique yourself, you critique others, you think you should have placed there or whatever, and like, oh, I want to improve next time. You just reflect.
Mm, but again, like I think I said this last episode, it's like if you don't look back at yourself and cringe, like you haven't improved. So, and likewise, if you're not, to a certain extent, it's that middle ground of like be content with how far you come, but know there's more room to grow. And it's like, I think it's okay to be dissatisfied with yourself, knowing that you want to improve, but not to the extent where you're kind of, really harshly self-criticizing yourself, because you've got to accept your body to a certain degree. So I think there's always that kind of middle ground one needs to strike with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm dissatisfied with my result, not with myself.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of where I reflect on that at least. Um, because, like you said, there's only so much you can change. Like I look at my structure and I'm like, man, I really don't like that. But hey, it's definitely improved and it's getting better, and I can appreciate that aspect at least.
Mm.
We've got time for one more question. Do you think?
I think we could even try to round this out. We've only got
Oh,
three questions
okay.
left.
Let's see if we can round it out. So we've got keeping up with John. With 9 sets in a session for chest, flat incline fly, is it best to take last set to failure on each 3 exercises or only last?
I would say, for me personally, I would take each last set to failure, because that could have corresponding effects on, that could regulate your sets for the next exercises. So I would take every set to a proximity to failure, basically, and then adjust your volume accordingly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is really hard because if you aren't taking it to failure, what are you doing? Is a
Yeah.
question I have. Is it just 0 RAR or is it 1? Because between
Mm.
1 and failure, there's not that much difference, like in terms of like effectiveness for hypertrophy. Uh, where within the mesocycle is this necessarily? Is that something you're adjusting? Without further context, it's really hard. So I think both can work. Uh, and I do think in general, taking that approach is wise in both situations. So the last set or the last exercise of sets is wise too. But whatever you're doing, you probably want to keep it semi-consistent and just make sure over the long term performance is going up. Yeah, I don't really have much more. I think I'd need to see the whole program and what was going
Yeah.
on week to week and what the progressions were looking like. Yeah,
Sounds good.
you're right. I think we can round it out.
Yeah. So, very quick and simple one. Manji Machine asks, what are your macros?
So I tend to have like a minimum protein, carbohydrate, and fat, and then I just hit a calorie range. So I'm aiming for around 3,300 calories, and I know I want to meet at least like most days 220 grams of protein, 400 grams of carbs, about 70 grams of fat. And then I just let whatever I need to meet the end of those calories. So I can actually bring up, this might even be a better answer. If I go to yesterday on my Fitness Pal and I look at my week view, I can give you my average macros for the last week. Protein was at 230, carbs were at 430, fat was at 73. So there you go. The week before that was 228 protein, 422 carbohydrate, 74 fat. So yeah, you can see mine are pretty pretty static.
There you
How about
go.
you, Mike? What are your macros?
So I'm very similar. So my protein is between 170 to 200. Again, the carbs fit the calories. My calories at the moment are between 32 to 33, that 3,200 to 3,300. And I would say, so if I was to get up,
So ours are well close. It's just my protein's a bit higher because I'm bigger than you,
yeah,
or heavier than
how
you, I should say.
I don't know how I could get up my weekly average, but
Oh, you don't know that. It's in, if you click the top where the numbers are, so underneath calories remaining, click
yeah,
that, and then go to nutrients,
uh,
and then it has day view, and you can click down to week view.
no,
Maybe let's not do this on air.
yeah. Maybe not, maybe later. But basically, I'm around there, basically. Calories,
Yeah.
3,200 to 3,300. Protein, 170 to 200. Tends to be around the 180 mark. And then fats is normally around 70 for me, so very similar. And carbs are actually quite similar too.
We might have to round it out there, Mike. My dog has
Okay.
just been sick.
Oh no.
on the
Okay.
carpet, so I'm gonna have to clean that up.
All right.
So we have one
Emergency
more
stop.
question we can get to next week. Hey, leave it, Ada. Yeah, we'll leave that there.
All right.
Thank you very much, guys, for your questions. I'm hoping
Take
Ada's
care,
okay
guys.
because she was taken to the emergency vet last week for a digestive issue. It looks like it's just grass, but I need to clean the carpet and I hope it doesn't stain. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for all the views and listens last week. It was great on the discussion we had about Jordan Peters. I know that drew a lot of people in, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, Mike.
All right. Appreciate you too, Steve. Take care, guys.
Cheers.